Hello, I'm Daniel, and welcome to the Emunah Project. We're here at the Emunah Project, are continuing in our series of videos with respect to inspiration, education, guidance, advice, and we're at the time of this recording. We're just past the Jewish festival of Hanukkah, the festival of lights, the miracle of the menorah in the temple, the oil, and the Jewish people. Chazal has compared the Jewish people to olives. There's lots of comparisons to fruit and things like that, but I'm going to concentrate, because of Hanukkah, I'm going to concentrate on the olive. And to get at its essence, the olive oil, there has to be beaten either from the trees or torn from the tree. It has to be crushed. It has to be ground. And through this process, we extract the oil. It's not like grapes, for example, that sometimes you'll put it in the press and just the natural weight the juice will flow. It takes work. It takes a lot of effort. It's rough on the olive. But an analogy can be drawn between, the olives and the Jewish people. When the Jewish people, as so often happens, suffer, and they're persecuted, and they're threatened, and they're killed, and they have a lot of fear and anxiety and terror. This produces Tshuvah. This often is a catalyst for repentance, and like the olive, this beating and crushing and grinding eventually produces the pure olive oil. This is a very poignant analogy, a metaphor. So naturally, I have a problem with it. I don't like the idea that the only thing that produces Tshuvah, that produces repentance, is pain and suffering. That's number one. And secondly, more importantly, why does the Creator accept this kind of repentance? Because it seems to me that if it's being coerced, if it's being forced out of the people through sheer terror, it's not exactly sincere tshuva, sincere repentance. So let's look at it a little closer. Clearly, pain and suffering is not the only thing that inspires tshuva. I would expect that most people, when they turn their life around, when they come closer to God, when they give up their bad ways, they do it sincerely and on their own, because they've examined their life and they've said, you know what, I need to do something. So it's not like only suffering induces tshuva. Secondly, addressing the other one, why God accepts it, is that some people, like the olive, their essential quality is good. But sometimes that essential quality can only be brought out through a refinement process, which involves sometimes pain and suffering and troubles. And so when this happens, it doesn't cancel out the tshuva for that particular kind of repentance. It's a natural part of the process. Whether you're talking about olives or grapes that have to be stomped and crushed and put in a press and squeezed, gold which has to be heated and refined and the dross taken out of it, just because that is what sparks the tshuva doesn't make it invalid, because sometimes, in order to get that pure essence out, depending on the nature, that is a part of the process. That's the way it goes. There is, and I'm reminded of, speaking of pain and suffering and repentance, I'm reminded of a story of Rabbi Nachum of Tschernobyl. And there are sections in the Torah specifically Leviticus chapter 26 and Deuteronomy chapter 28. They paint very stark and bleak and terrifying passages where the Creator says, listen, if you don't smarten up, if you don't do what's right, if you don't obey my commandments, and if you continue to go in your sinful ways, there will be dire consequences, and it actually spells them out. Horrible, horrible things. It's difficult to listen to, it's difficult to read. So the story of Rabbi Nachum of Tschernobyl was that he was in shul during one of these times, Parshas Bechukosai, for example, when we deal with Leviticus chapter 26, verses 3 to 13. That's the first one. And he was in shul, and he was in the shul of the Baal Shem Tov. This would have been in the middle 1700s. Now, Rabbi Nachum of Tschernobyl was a sickly man. He was sore, and he was unwell, and he was in pain. And during one of these, this Shabbos, Bechukosai, I think it could have been Kisavo, but let's say it was this one, he was called up to the Torah. He was given an aliyah during this Shabbos. And it just happened to be like Dafka, the aliyah that had the Tochacha, the passages of reproof, let's call them. And at first he was a little, not upset, but he's like, really, this is the one you give me, the one with all the suffering in it. I don't have enough problems. The Baal Shem Tov was the one reading. Normally, the tradition is to read them quietly. You shouldn't be so loud because it's pretty disturbing stuff. And the Torah reader, the guy who's doing the cantillations and everything like that, he does it in a subdued voice. Rabbi Nachum of Tschernobyl gets the aliyah. The Baal Shem Tov, he reads this passage, this aliyah, and it's all done in one, so that you don't break it up. He does it in a very loud, a very clear voice, contrary to tradition. And as Rabbi Nachum of Tschernobyl was listening to the Baal Shem Tov reading, and he's understanding the words, all of a sudden his ailments started going away. His pain, limb by limb, he felt better. And until by the end of the aliyah, he was feeling fine. And when it was time for him to return to his seat, people saw that he was walking freely and easily. So this is in a situation where, although you're not physically suffering and producing good results, this is a story where Rabbi Nachum of Tschernobyl, while listening to the Baal Shem Tov reading the Tochacha, it had a beneficial effect. We're going to be doing more videos along these lines. Please come back, please watch, please learn. And until next time, on behalf of the Emunah Project, I'm Daniel, and thank you so much.